The Late Bloomer Project. The first piece of wood thrown on the fire to make me a serious competitor at heart was back in 1995. Going to my grandparents' house every day allowed me to play against my cousins around 4 years old. No one showed us or told us to play basketball. We played all sports actually, but basketball was played the most because we didn't need anything besides a ball and my grandparents' permission to go outside. Basketball came naturally to me. It was pure. The early 2000s kind of guys, late 90s, when the triple threat was popular. I remember I was playing one-on-one against my cousin David. And honestly, that's where it all started. That Bennett team. I remember fourth grade meeting Mr. Martin. And, from starting at like 4, 5 years old, I didn't play on the actual team, like under the referee and a whistle and all that, until I would say fourth grade, meeting Mr. Martin. My childhood friend Ricardo, he put me on. He was like, yo, we hoop every day, bro, in my dad's alley. Every day we hoop in my dad's alley. And I remember being in the back of the auditorium laughing that day at Bennett. It was like a program, assembly. And it was the Young Authors Awards. I had submitted a book. The 2 days before, I submitted a book for like a Chicago City contest for writers. And I'm in the back of the auditorium laughing, joking, talking. And all of a sudden I hear, first place, Gerald Jackson. And I'm like, wait, what? I actually won? So I ended up winning first place in the Chicago Young Author Award competition. And I remember 9/11 was around the time, and so because I remember these yellow and black Hirachis I had. So don't quote me on that specific year, but I remember the Hirachis was out. Kobe was doing this thing, and I remember going into 5th grade. The game had a song called "Hated or Love It." Hated or love it, the underdogs on top, and I'm gonna shine, homie, until my heart stop. Go ahead and envy me. That was 5th grade. But before the season started, I remember tryouts. Tryouts at Bennett was crazy. Like the year before, I'm still nervous and stuff. And I was just playing. I started playing in the alley with Mr. Martin's house. And I was used to playing on my own, but now I was like starting to play my neighborhood. And so tryouts at Bennett was crazy. I only made the team, honestly, because I had a left-hand layup, literally. Most of the guys in my hood, from Joe to Marcus was like Stephon Marbury. Joe was like LeBron in the hood. We battled day in, day out, literally. I ended up making the team, and I remember my first game, Hated or Love It came out. I was nervous as hell. I was terrified. All I knew how to do was dribble to the corner. And I wasn't used to playing with rules under the whistle or nothing like that. So then fast forward to 6th and 7th grade, I came into myself. I was literally more confident. And then on our 8th grade team, the season eventually got canceled, which made it even harder for me to get recruited by a high-level high school. You know the way Chicago worked, the Simeons, the Whitney Youngs, all those schools, they're recruiting middle schoolers. And so that was my first setback. That was my first thing that made me doubt, could the universe, could God do this? Like, I wanted to be an NBA player. I always felt like I was an NBA player since I touched the basketball. I never thought about college. I never was like, nope. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, I was never thinking about no college and letters of intent. So the entire time I'm playing basketball in middle school and starting to play AAU and stuff, my intention wasn't there. Our family's intention wasn't, okay, we need to be sending out film to college coach. We had no clue about the college recruiting process. Like, you had to pay people to learn information that should be free. It was just a different time. You didn't have as many YouTube channels teaching you. And so it was a lot of misinformation out there that if we had known, it could have definitely sent me on a different trajectory as far as where I would have went to play in college. My capabilities to persevere and to maintain confidence and belief. So it was more of a spiritual journey for me. And so it only made my natural love for the game increase. It was pure. It wasn't politics. It was raw athleticism and confidence. It wasn't any motive to make money. Like, to this day, people are like, yo, why you want to play basketball still? You got a degree. You got this. I'm like, yo, I started playing basketball outside of thinking about money. I didn't pick up the ball with, I want to buy my mama a house, and none of that. It was just pure, I love this game. This is part of me. Like, since I touched the ball, and my first love was baseball, but basketball was always the thing in the background that's like, this just feels more like me. And so going into AAU, I remember being at my dad's house one summer in Minnesota. We in the backyard playing catch with the baseball. I'm talking about Derek Jeter. He had, I think I had a new baseball bat, the aluminum bats. And my dad was like, man, you got a basketball body. You got a basketball body. I kind of started catching a growth spurt. I was around like 5'9", going into 5'11". And my dad was like, yo, you look like a basketball player. And, you know, when you don't grow up with your father on an every day in your household, any little thing your father said, you hold on to. You like, damn, this is what my dad thought. Oh, okay. Bet, confirmation. Because I knew what I was. I'm like, confirmation. He finally started to see it. So I ended up getting on the Illinois Spartans AAU team. My dad had a friend he grew up with, Ron. His son, Ronald Austin Jr., a.k.a. Buddy, put me on. He was like, yo, it's a little team that I play AAU with. Man, that changed my life, man. This coach, Coach Salle, I hope he's still around. Coach Salle, hope he sees this. He took us in. He would pick us up, and we would drive to this like church gym, and it was just like we was just like little gods out there, little kings. We was just out there killing each other. It'd be like all these guys from like the area, and we were just like untrained. We was raw. We'd get up and down. But Coach Salle really taught us how to play, taught us how to stop at the free throw line on the fast break to make a pass or shoot. It was just little things about spacing and defense and stuff that no one taught me, but he was like slowly framing my mindset to get ready to play under the whistle. And playing with the Illinois Spartans, man, we played in all type of big tournaments. We went, we were the team that had to raise money and ask our parents for money and do the candy sales. We was one of those type of AAU teams. We didn't have Nike or Adidas sponsoring us, but he really exposed us to some solid tournaments, and we actually qualified for nationals. We went to Florida and we competed on the national AAU circuit, played against future NBA players, and had guys on my team like Walt Lemon, who would later get called up to the Chicago Bulls. And, because of my development path, not playing, I would say, high-level AAU, even that was a setback because now you don't get to play high-level college. So I looked at it always like, okay, this is just God allowing me to continue to work on my skills in the dark, honestly. And because of not playing high-level AAU, Peach Jam, you know what I'm saying? People don't realize majority of the AAU world, majority of basketball players growing up are not the people that play in the Peach Jam and the big EYBL nowadays. It's like 95% of basketball players grew up like me, like the, played on the local teams, the local AAU tournament, the local circuits. So because of my development not playing high level AAU, I ended up not playing high level college ball. And that took away time for me to play against the absolute best, obviously. But still, as the saying goes, all things work for our good when we believe. And so by not being on a national stage, it allowed me to build confidence in the dark. So, the Spartans was definitely like one of those teams, we have to raise our own money, and it was a great experience. I wouldn't change it for nothing. That really was like my start with basketball. Going into the AAU circuit, 16U, 17U, we in high school at this point. And my mom, she had me going to this school called De La Salle. Man, that was a culture shock for me, literally, because it was a lot. I was going 1st through 8th grade in the hood at a public school with all black kids, and now all of a sudden I'm going to this school where I gotta get up early, take the bus and the train to get to. White kids in my class, Hispanic kids, the work is hard. We gotta read books and we got algebra, all this stuff. It was a lot. And I just came from playing one middle school basketball season to a top 10 powerhouse in the state of Illinois. I wasn't used to two-a-days strength and conditioning. At the same time, my head was still in the clouds. I thought I was Kobe for real. I thought I was the shit. The school almost broke my confidence, though, by keeping me on that bench and only letting me play freshman and sophomore team at that. Actually, I would get double-doubles on the B team, though. 10 and 10 easy, and people would come and root me on and watch my games. My mother would come see me play, and I'd be embarrassed sitting on the bench when the varsity game came, actually not even playing. And Coach White told me I had a chance. He said coming off the bench behind all these Division I players they had at De La Salle, I wouldn't have a chance. That's what he said. But I refused to let somebody break my confidence, break my belief. And at the time, I didn't know how to battle that spiritually, so I just retreated. I left and I went to a different high school. That's all I knew. I was like, I got to play. I don't know what this guy's talking about, but I got to play. And so, De La Salle had big names, big AAU teams. The AAU coaches were the assistant coaches at my high school. So you know how that goes. I got kids on my team play for the Mac Irvin Fire and all these type of things in Chicago. So you know how that goes. And so Coach White at the time was the varsity head coach at De La Salle. He kept it real with me. We had a conversation. I told him I was transferring. I got my transcripts and I bounced. And honestly, the rest was history in the sense of moving forward confidently playing basketball. When I went to Urban Prep, Coach Farrell, it was a breath of fresh air, a new start for me. And Coach Farrell, he really let us go. Like at Urban Prep, I didn't have to think a lot. I didn't have to be so caught up in systems and politics. I was able to just hoop and be free. And it felt like a brotherhood. I wouldn't even been at Urban Prep if it wasn't for Damian Mack, who lived upstairs where I grew up. That's where he was at. He was like, yo, this is going to be our first year in varsity, bro. Man, let's do something. It's a new school. They new to the public league. So I saw it as a challenge. Again, the competitor in me was like, let's do it. I need this. I want to do something different. I'll be honest, I think as kids, when we think of our path and our goals being perfectly linear. Elementary school, play at AAU, high school, you're gonna play at a big college, then you're gonna be a pro. Everything was shattered right out of going into high school. My recruitment process, I didn't have nobody to guide me on the recruiting journey and tell me, don't go to a D1, maybe go to a small school, JUCO, work on your game, then transfer. So I didn't know any of the options to get exposure. I didn't play on the Nike or Adidas AAU team. I played with Illinois Old School. We were sponsored by Chris Duhan. He was a Bulls Knicks player, went to Duke. Our coach was Andy Borman. He's one of Coach K's nephews. So we had some close connections, like Sean Dockery played at Duke. He would come to our practice sometimes and play with us. So, I had some exposure. We went to the same big tournaments as the Nike and Adidas schools, but my family, we didn't have any college athletes in my family or any retired pros to call and get advice. So it was just going into the whole process blindfolded. Howard University is a great school academically, but my goal is to play in the NBA. My goal is still to play in the NBA. So, and I'm just being honest, not that there's something wrong with college, but I never had anybody in my family that played college basketball. And so I didn't have this influence of, you gotta be logical. And I didn't have this linear thought of, I gotta go to college first and then I gotta do this. I just knew who I was at a young age. I'm an NBA player. my grandpa always just told us to focus. My family raised me to understand that it's nothing in this world you can't do. And so I never had some uncle or somebody or some coach that's like, hey, you got to do this. You got to make this high school team. Then you got to go to that college. And granted, that's good for getting used to competition. But for me, I think the universe was aligning me to understand, like it put me on this path to help me understand who I am. I guess by God taking my desires and put me on a different journey compared to my peers who went off to play at D1s and got a chance to get in the draft, got NBA workouts, go high level Euro League. You know, they path was like smooth sailing. I wouldn't change my path for nothing because I feel like I learned the most about life on my journey. I've met people. I feel like when you spend your time climbing the back stairs up to your goal, whether that's entertainment, sports, whatever, you learn more of the nuances of the business, the decision makers, the real stakeholders. I really was able to learn basketball in a different way. I had to change my game so many times to still compete. Like, you know, growing up, we all want to be like Kobe and dunk. Like, then I saw the game become a shooting game in the midst of my 20s. So I had to become a better shooter. You know, little nuances like that made me a more complete player by not being on a big stage ASAP, whether that's college or early pros. I didn't have a spotlight on me. So I was able to learn more and develop holistically as a man and a basketball player. And now I'm in a much more confident place. Like, I probably wouldn't be this confident and be who I am if I wasn't on this journey. At Howard, a lot of people know, some people know I got a legendary grind. Like, I was in every gym, 4, 5, 6 in the morning. Like, I was working out at one point more than the scholarship players. But while I was at Howard, I finished up getting my degree. I was an information systems major. And at the time, like, I remember having work study, having to have a job at the Apple store, waking up early to train, work on my game. Still had 18 and 21 credits some semesters. Like, I don't know where the energy came from. That was all God. Like, I realized nobody was going to the NBA from Howard, out of Howard, and for the first time, I actually pressed pause on my hoop dream, honestly, in the sense of playing on a team, being an active player. I legit still knew with hard work, in my case, all year round, I would actually get way better because I wouldn't have had to play the politics with the NCAA stuff. You know, when you sign a letter of intent, there's a certain expectation that has to be met for the university. And I didn't want to play those games, those politics. So, to be honest, I got way better because I wasn't on the team. Like, I did the 1867 travel team at Howard for a little while. The North versus South game, I was dominating every year. And it was like this all-star game in D.C. This was like my college game in front of the whole school, in front of the whole city. It was like a big experience for me as a hooper. But they treated it like the McDonald's All-American game almost. Like, it was a big deal. We had practice and everything. In 2014, I actually walked back on the scout team at Howard. It was over 100 people in the gym trying out, and they kept 3 of us, including me. Gave me all the free Howard gear, but, again, because I had a financial hardship and I had real money that needed to be made and I had loans and bills in my name, I knew that I had to focus on finishing my degree. And, I had to leave basketball in the path, in the sense, how they tell us that we got to go down this linear path. I had to quickly think different. And so my last year at Howard, going into my 5th year, that 5th year was tough at Howard because I was training to prepare myself for the overseas combines and these different workouts for overseas teams, training camp opportunities and tryouts. And at the same time, I was trying to finish 21 credits. Man, I was so depressed. My anxiety was through the roof. And that's when I really first got into mindfulness and really began to look at the process different. I stopped looking at the entire mountain itself and literally started training my mind to see every day as opportunity to get better, to get 1% better. I just started to focus on mastering my inconsistencies one day at a time. And that's how Defeat Today came about. It started from my hoop journey and just how I began to change my mindset. My setbacks became the part of the process that gave me my greatest strength. And so I just had to kind of submit humbly and just be obedient to my path. And I really started to buy into the journey is the reward for real. You definitely buy into that when that's your only option.